And Maria can take
Yes.
it away.
All
Go ahead and
right.
share your screen.
Okay, sounds great. Well, thank you for the introduction, and thank you all for who are here with us today. I'm Maria Servellon, and today I will be doing an artist talk on the digital art mixing and video projection installation work that I do on the regular. We'll also have some music on the background because I always work best with music, but I won't have it too loud. Yeah, so let's see. Okay, so I'm going to do some screen sharing. So what I do, I liken it to digital knitting. And so today I'm doing some kind of form of it where I am knitting digitally while I'm chatting and talking about my process and where I've been. And I'm hitting like a couple of points as well about um, vulnerability in art making, art for healing, and seeing the beauty in errors, which is super important in the type of work that I do because it directly involves errors and glitches and screen freezes and things like that. So yeah, let me take a, just let me briefly show. So, um, so I kind of stumbled upon this, like, I would say it found me without me trying to find it when I was in graduate school at Emerson College for film and media art. I was like, well, I don't want to just, I'm a filmmaker, writer, director, but I don't want to just stay stuck in the film realm. I come from a studio art background and I miss making, video and experimental works and things like that. So I started to play around with I'm also like a big concert fan as well. So I started playing around with digital video mixing. So the term for that, a person who does that work is a VJ, and who mixes around I'm just trying to do a screen share while talking. There we go. Okay, so let's see, who mixes pieces of media together to create new media. And so one of the first pieces I did was Through the Wall, which is paying homage to 90s and early 2000s influences, pop culture influences in the aspect of always wanting to have like so I'm bicultural, meaning that I'm Latin American and I'm also American, so first generation. So a lot of folks in these hyphens of life always have culture clash of wanting to embracing Selena from, the Tex-Mex singer, and embracing Kurt Cobain and Nirvana. So, and trying to find connection within that in the American context overall. So, wanting to be able to, uh, you know, try to embrace the different identities that make us for what we listen to with music or movies or the clothes we wear, the way that we speak, the mannerism and things like that. And so I did that, and then I then created another piece called Out of the Silhouette. So bringing that a little bit closer to, let's see, bear with me as I multiple screen share. Um, so trying to create more like, okay, so we have the projection screen or a blank wall, but how can we create a much more vivid experience? And this is when I created Out of the Silhouette, where I then moved all of these experiences and these music and culture mixing within the silhouette that was me. And we projected it here at Emerson College against the doorway because the door leads to different places. And I wanted to test that out to see what that also looks like and feels like, to be able to project myself, you know, on a screen and have people pass by me and people see all of the different kinds of mixes and different things that happen or that I think about within the self. So being able to consider yourself a working collage is something that that I, you know, consider myself as. I mean, we're all like different collages of different experiences, of different motivations, of different histories, and even different things such as, you know, memories and dreams and traumas and, you know, different pieces that make an us. And so, let's see. So the work that I that I base this off of is using this software called AV Mixer Pro. And it basically is very simple. I didn't want to complicate my technological knowledge too much, but certainly there's other programs out there that have a wide array of controls, and you can connect like MIDI keyboards and you can do all these crazy effects and things like that. But the reason why I decided to work on a little bit more low-key basic software is because these pieces that I create aren't just like concert-based like graphics. They all have like a narrative. So they have like a start to a finish, where you know, I am consciously selecting what pieces will go where. And so in the piece called, so that was the interface of what I work on. And let's see. And so one of my most recent pieces was called Between You and I and Them. I made it during like a really tough time period last summer where I was going through some things, and like I had fallen off of creating these visuals for a while because I was so concentrated on making my film called Hyphen and traveling and touring with it, and I had not really been able to create any more like studio like art-based work. And so I had like, so in filmmaking, I had created a story based off like 4 versions of myself. And so they're all like people that play me and my memories and experiences. And, you know, that takes a lot where like you're writing a script about your life, you are having people in your cast and your crew, like to be able to understand where you're coming from and learn stories about you. You have people, actors, playing different parts of people you've known, or some people like those people. And then, you know, putting this work out there. So being vulnerable with yourself and your work and your history and things that you think about out there into the unknown with different people viewing this work all the time and everywhere or anytime, especially now that it's online. So yeah, so I had like a mix of emotions of, well, I have different things that I think about and things that make different versions of me within that. And so that's how I started to recreate these pieces again of different, tuning into my emotions and how do I feel about this, like putting myself out there, and then being able to see these works and know exactly how I felt and exactly where I was in this time frame. And so a lot of the imagery that I make, you know, has a start and has an end. And has like a story that is very loose, it's very abstract. Different people are seeing different iterations and meanings for this work. And so only I guess would say that knows exactly what each of these graphics mean and where, with loose translations and experimentation and going with the flow and trying to see some beauty within these errors, because that's how the graphics work, where we take bright images or images that look really well done, and then we go in and we chop them up, we put up the contrast, we put in the brightness, we have them glitch up, we have them create some errors in there that create new images, new stories, new narrative, and that is how we have something that's a little bit different than concert graphics, where obviously those are a little bit more abstract and go with music, and they have like a purpose of how they're supposed to go. They're more so playing with the music. On my end, I am trying to create such a narrative that go from like very sweet, pretty images to sometimes going really dark and scary. And so these show like a timeline of like an event or feelings, or even narrating, issues that deal with race, gender, sexuality, culture, trauma, therapeutic imagery, and things like that. So that is what Between You and I, this piece that I made last year in response to that like crazy summer, then reconnecting with it this year during pandemic. So I'm like, oh, it's pandemic, great. So I'm going to play something. So I made this piece along with music. So I was listening to music, and then I make the piece along to the music. And then this time around, I was like, well, I want to maybe like mix some music and now do it reverse, where I, DJ officially the music to these images. And so working backwards, which I'd never done before, I was like, but I want to, was a piece to create some kind of sense of a therapeutic effect, or, a healing for me back then. Maybe it works for some people this time around during these stressful times. And so being able to put music to that the other way around. And so that is what that work consists of. And so let's see. Okay, so so this is where I begin incorporating some of my work, where right now you are seeing me, and this is what you see in front of you. And so slowly I start to kind of play with images, where eventually, so this is who you see and who you know via Zoom. And so slowly I start to kind of bring in other images, where I eventually, things will start to get distorted, and how you see me will start to change, and start to not look as the way that it appears firsthand. And so that is how I start to create some of these live mixes. And if you are welcome to put in the chat if you want to see certain images, and then I can start bringing those in as I work on this moving piece that we have going on right now. I recently got the software, so the new version of the software, so it included new updates, in which I'm very happy about. So, but yeah, this is where we are right now. And we'll start mixing a couple of things, and you'll start to see some images that start to change and slowly transform, and yeah. Okay, we have shark, fish, whale, and ocean. Okay, I got you. And so for me, like, as I start knitting this narrative, I'm chatting with you. This is the first time I've chatted while I am, creating these images. But for me, I describe myself as somebody that like, I'm a rather introverted person, and I don't really chat as much, and very extrovertedly, very loudly. For me, and the way that I was raised, it was certainly like, be, quiet, don't make too much noise, don't bother people. Like, it's a little bit of like, uh, you know, um, like that Hispanic parent, like the perfect child, needing to make sure that you aren't seen or causing too much problems, or having people go out of their way. And so for me, like, my parents are, like, are immigrants and have come to the US. And so for their experience was to, dealt with a lot of like racism, and a lot of issues being able to fit into this country. And so for me, like, growing up, especially as a teenager, of course, teenagers want to rebel, and to be able to, do what they want to do and say what they want to say. And and so we had like a lot of like miscommunication early on in my teenager years, because like I want to do something very specific, but then they'd be like, no, like, we need to lay low and be, like, not cause any issues or anything like that. And so, I always felt like there was like many more layers of myself that I wanted to explore, and to be able to, have other people to chat with, other kids to talk about. And that unfortunately was not really much the case. And so, so it's not until I started, so I was like, okay, well, with my artwork, I guess I can do more of this. And so writing music and drawing and, doing lots of different things. And so having that feeling of, how can I express myself without limitations, without restrictions, and to be able to show and share with people different layers that happen within me, different layers that, uh, that occur in my day-to-day thinking, and uh, to be able to get rid of some of that, like, generational oppression and generational trauma, that lots of people that don't really feel like they 100% belong in the American context, be able to belong in within this. And so how do I how do I describe and show some of that with people and it feel natural and feel good. And so for me, that's what a lot of this DJ mixing is, where I am able to share some pieces of me, be able to show what goes on in the different layers, and then yeah, like feel good about it and be very unapologetic and um, and see how people react. And that's what some of um, some of the vulnerability means in art making, is that it's very strange and it's like, you know, I don't, oh, like this is like too much information, and you know, we can't let other people know about it, and it's like, well, this is gonna be very, you know, like too much. And so what is too much? And so what does that mean to be you know, to be too much? That is something that I explore within these works. And so the representation of these different images appear within this, this digital mixing, where I'm able to control how I present myself, how I, yeah, like what are the images that I'm going to show? What are the images that I'm going to show to people? So it's kind of like how we, you know, present ourselves to different people. What are the layers that we choose to show others? And so, and then there's going to be confusion. There's going to be weirdness. There's going to be like, you know, people that get it and people that don't get it. And so um, um, that's what kind of why I call this some of the beauty within the errors. Because sometimes the images will not be as perfect or as, you know, make sense as, in the way that they are. Sometimes they will glitch up, sometimes they will freeze and do different things that I'm like, oh, okay, I guess we're going with this. So it's like almost like whenever we have like issues going on in life, you know, like we're gonna try to go with it. I mean, there's really no other way. So pandemic for me has been like a time to be able to uh, think about like, okay, like how can I, you know, make do with what I have? Well, I have a lot of time. I have a lot of quietness suddenly. I have a lot of questions. And so what can I do with what I have at the moment? And then same goes with these images of what can I do with the graphics that I have here. So if you'd like to see other images inserted in this while I keep digitally knitting this, let me know. But please feel free to unmute yourself or to type it in on the chat. Trees. Okay, let's do trees. When I first started to learn how to use all of the software, I was like, oh no, like I don't, all these controllers are overwhelming. And there's like so much happening, and like, oh no, that I didn't want it to do that, I didn't want it to do this, but there's only so much you can control in the way that you use these programs and the way that you know, work through it. So it's like at some point you have to kind of go with the flow about it and be like, okay, I guess this is what's happening. So I can only, you know, use what I have here. So these are, you know, okay, so this is what happens. Like, oh no, this isn't exactly how I wanted it. So how can I create other images within that? And, you know, explore what can come off of it within the narrative. What are some images? Can we have like, you know, if it's pop culture recognizable images, what does that look like when we have, you know, like Madonna and Barack Obama, like kind of like moving together. And so that's what one of my pieces, Through the Wall, was like, where I have, you know, different, you know, people that you would never like see them being together, eventually be able to create some kind of new narrative within that, which is always really interesting. And working with music always helps me. So because music has like a nice flow, it has uh, it helps with the tempo of how I edit this, and so it's not too erratic or it's not too all over the place. So and also, like, I love music, and I'm able to create um, different images influenced by the music as well. And it also like is you know, very showing of the kind of music that I like, the different kinds that I listen to during not so great times, but also times that are going pretty well, and times that are, you know, very confusing. So this is able to help me kind of process how I'm going to create the images a little bit better. So so I am able to, so the work is entirely in the moment. And then, so sometimes I can sort of recreate, but there are other times where I'm just unable to recreate the same exact image. I like to take stills sometimes of the work that I'm doing. I'm like, oh, that's pretty interesting. Like, I didn't know. So like, you know, there's some little nuggets, gold nuggets within them that I'm like, this is really cool. And so I've been able to exhibit some of these some of these images as well. So that has been really great to be able to get pieces that, I don't know who this guy is. I'm just like, that image just popped up. He's like, oh, okay, it's working. So it's great to be able to get some nuggets in there, and then be able to exhibit these pieces as digital art. And that has been good, and I'm you know, looking to possibly at one point be able to sell them as prints. So that would be pretty interesting, or have them on shirts, or have them, you know, anywhere. And it's also like to be able to have performances of this is also really great as well. I really, I think that to be able to perform is something that is very vulnerable, and to be able to have, you know, different reactions come off of this from people. So I'm able to have some vulnerability in that sense to, you know, play off errors, play off anything that isn't exactly where I'm going, to be able to think on the spot and how am I going to do this, how am I going to do that, and yeah, like I'm a rather short person, and so I like to let my art speak for myself when it comes to the first appearances that I have. So to be able to have, you know, like I've had some people say like, oh, whoa, like I didn't expect these artworks that you make come off of you, and I'm like, oh, why is that? And they're like, oh, because, you know, you seem very like this way and that way. So I think that that's, you know, I usually take that as a compliment, because I'm like, you know, these are images that of things that I think about, or things that I, you know, try to create a narrative of, and find the errors within, and try to, yeah, come up with new ideas and keep thinking and how to think of things in a way that are so abstract. So it's a great lesson in that not everything is what it seems. So some of the images I create them or animate them. Sometimes I use footage that I record. And that's always good. I have recently been putting myself more into the pieces, my images, so that people can see what I've been up to, or what am I doing, what do I look like while I'm performing. So that's very interesting. I don't know if anybody has any questions so far, but yeah, that's.
Maria, this is really fascinating. I have a million questions, but I don't want to dominate. So I'll just ask.
Oh, please ask away. I think that is in my storytelling.
So I'm curious, like, you know this software pretty well at this point, so you may not have to, but when you start a new project, do you have a plan for where you're going to go with it? How does it end up? How do you know, like, how do you know when you're done, I suppose would be a way to say that.
Yeah, so So how do you know when you're done? So let's see. I would say that I think so. The thing about this working live, and especially in front of audiences and things like that, is um, I think about like where it's very intuitive, and so where does everything fit in, or where am I going? So what is the narrative that I'm constructing right now? So you know, right now I don't have like a set narrative on how I'm creating these images, because I'm getting suggestions from people on the chat room, and sometimes I have like these pre-saved images that help help things, you know, go by faster for me. But if there's like a particular image that I'm looking for, I can't find it here, and so how do I know I'm done? Well, I would say that probably when I like intuitively feel it. Some pieces end up being like 1 minute long, because I'm like, oh, I'm going somewhere. And then it's like, as soon as I feel like the mixing is going elsewhere that I don't really ideally feel like it's, you know, headed somewhere interesting, to me anyways, then that's when I know that, okay, like I think it's good. So yeah, that's my stance. But if it's a piece that I'm deliberately editing, or I'm gonna upload online, then it'll have like a different start and end point.
So it could be either.
Does anybody else have any questions?
I have another one if no one else does.
Let's go ahead.
All right, so I'll ask my question. So you said you started with studio art. What kind of studio art, and how do you think that has influenced your current art and what you do with it?
Sure. So I started off with drawing. I've been drawing for so many years, observational drawing, and I guess that kind of helps in this what I do here, because I am observing what fits into what and how is this going to look like. And so then I started to progress into documentary, or just like vlogging, like documenting images and, you know, so observing others. So, and even in my own raising, I was always encouraged to observe and listen instead of just talking. and so a lot of the work I've done is just or just learning of life has been observational. And then yeah, I started to move on to like fiction, dance, music making, or songwriting specifically. And I've always wanted to like learn how to pick up an instrument and play it, but I just never learned. And so yeah, so these, and some painting as well. But that's how some of these images come from, that just feel good, and I can create anything, and I can able to mix it and to be able to create something new that I that is not usual, like art making in general, because this is relying on a lot of errors and a lot of that's kind of like the beauty of glitch art, is to create like errors or things that look really weird and really wonky, and um, find some really good nooks and pieces within that. So
So how would anyone know who wasn't you if there was an error? I mean, in some ways, this sort of reminds me of jazz. Once it gets really far off from what the original tune was or the original composition, and the musician might know that that's not what they intended to do, but is that really an error, or is that just an unintended consequence?
that's a great way to put it. And unintended consequence and errors. I really like some like, you know, if like, let's say for example, if you were to smash like an LCD screen and then you have all of these pixels that get smudged everywhere. I always found those really fascinating for some reason, because you know, they're pixels that no longer work. They melt down, they transform into something else. And so that's an error. And so like interesting things can come off of that. And then unintended consequence, like, well, for a moment there, in the previous image that I just had right now, where it's just like all black, that's an unintended consequence, because I've started to add up a lot of images, and that started to get like very like smooshed everywhere. But I wouldn't call that one per se like an error. It's just like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that could do that, and I like it. So that's a way I would describe some of it. But do I ever see like errors that I don't like? Absolutely. There's lots of times where I'm just like, oh no, like I thought this was gonna go somewhere, but at some point you have to kind of go with it.
Very cool. How long did it take you to learn this? Like, is it a big learning curve? Is it, you know, is it sort of like, is it like learning how to work with your photos in like the Apple photo program versus learning how to use Photoshop? Is there a lot of depth to it?
So I would say that it took me some time, just because of the software, and there's much more complicated softwares that are like, just, there's so many controls all over the place, and I think it took me a semester of school. Like I liked studying at Emerson, or my school, because the professor that I was working with, Paul Toronto, was all about like, if there's something that you find fascinating, something that you really want to learn how to do, try it. Like, try the software and just kind of go with it. And so I was like, oh, I like concerts. I love how music works with the images. What are they using? What are they doing? How can I create something a little bit more meaningful than things I can go and dance to at the club? So this took me like about like 2 months or so to be able to create something that wasn't just errors and errors and errors. I'm like, okay, this isn't going where I wanted to go, but how can I create something that is more intentional? And I'm like, oh, I like where this is going. I have more control over it. So, I have a question here.
Yeah, Michelle, the question, do you ever go back and change or alter a piece?
No, I don't. That's a great question, Michelle. I leave it the way it is. I think it's like a moment of time. It's kind of, I liken it to memory. Once it's done, it's done, and I can't, I could try. It's probably not gonna go as well as I want it to go, but I like to leave it the way it was. And so it's like, okay, that piece is done. But would I want to go back? I mean, there are times where I'm like, oh, I wish I could have. Maybe after I stopped press, I stopped having record on. I was like, oh, something are happening. Oh, I wish I could have gone back and done this thing over here instead. But I leave it the way it is until like another time.
Ooh, that's cool.
Does anyone else have any other questions?
Do you teach people how to use it?
I would be happy to teach folks how to use it. It makes for great parties for folks like to, be, there at the table and like eating their snacks and drinking drinks. And then I like to project off ceilings. That's always really interesting where, maybe a group of people are hanging out and having a good time, and it just kind of adds a nice ambiance. Yeah, I have a show coming up called, I'm part of the Area Code exhibition that's happening in Boston, which is a response to pandemic season for us artists. And it'll be August 17th at the Salem State Complex, where there will be a collection of pieces between you and I and them will be shown, and that'll be on the screen. So it's a drive-in show actually. So it's free, and cars come through and are able to watch all the different works. Two of my mentors, Kat Maza and Paul Toronto, will be there. So it's an honor to show on the same art fair with my mentors. And I have another piece out of the silhouette that'll be projected. It'll be about like 6 feet off the ground, and it'll probably be about 8 feet tall. So it's great because I am not that height, not even closely, but it looks amazing. So yeah, I am very tall in this, or at least my silhouette is very tall in this projection. So so that'll be good. So I invite everybody. It's next Friday, the 14th.
How can we find out more about the Area Code show? Can you put a website or something in the show notes, or should we just go to Twitter or Instagram or something? And
so all my work is on mariaservellon.com, and Area Code's website is areacodeartfair.com. There you'll see all the pieces that'll be showing that day, and
Area Code Art what? Forum?
fair. Let's chat is like, okay, so areacodefair.com. That is where the art show will be. I will stop my share because that is my piece. And my website is mariaservellon.com. And yeah, all my handles and things like that are Maria Servellon or -film on Twitter, Instagram, the whole thing.
Cool. Any other questions? Sure. No? Awesome. Yes, it was awesome.
Yeah, thank you for having me on this. It was great to kind of have like a digital knit and chat with folks to be able to chat a little bit about vulnerability and art making, art for healing, and what the beauty and errors are. I'm a big proponent of all three. And please catch or just keep a lookout for more of my works that I will be creating over time. And it's been good to have you guys here.
Thank you. Thanks so much for doing this.
Yeah, really. That was amazing. Amazing. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Salem State is coming up soon. I hope the weather's good.
Yeah, really.
Try
Really. Does anyone else have any last minute questions for Maria? No? Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. And keep posted if you go to our Facebook page of MARV. We are continuing about roughly every other week or so with more artists presentations, and they're all different. So I highly encourage you to check in, and you can always also, if you're not sure, you can also email us. We'd be happy to give you more information. So,
All right. Thanks, everybody.
thank you. Thank you.
People.
Thank you again, Maria.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Great
Thank
job.
you.
Right. I guess we are done. I think you have to end it, Sarah.
No, I sent it back to you.